both in person and via Zoom. Speakers on the agenda may be participating remotely, and the chair may allow for the public to provide comment. The select board would like to hear public comments, and if there's further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to, within the confines of open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to individual attendees unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, so please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All the materials for this meeting, except any executive session materials, are available on Board Docs, and we recommend that members of the public follow the agenda as posted on Board Docs unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. And further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items of public comment after the members have spoken, the chair may afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford a number of minutes for comments. 3 for this session, and public comment for public hearings will only be accepted in a in-person basis per open meeting law. And the first item is public comments. The board would like to hear public comments. If there's further action as required by board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to, within the confines of open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. And I will start with the room. Are there any public comments from the room tonight? Seeing none, I will see if there are any public comments from those joining us online. Okay. There are no public comments, and so we will turn to our first item, or our fourth item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And in addition to a cemetery deed, it looks like we have a court of honor invitation for 2 Eagle Scouts. Greg, do you have any other information on that?
Besides my congratulations to the 2 Scouts, I believe the board is invited to attend. I'd have to look.
It's Sunday at 1, and I can make it if nobody else can, but if anybody else can. Okay, very good. All right, sounds good.
This Sunday?
This Sunday. All right, and I've got the proclamations here for signatures, so we'll see how many we can get on there.
And I split the days, so it's 1 scout for each. I did 2 different days for them.
Fantastic.
Which
We might be able to get stamps.
yeah,
Okay, very good. Any commentary on any of the consent agenda items from the board? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda, items A and B as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. David?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Congratulations to the 2 individuals getting their Eagle Scouts. All right, we'll move on to 2 appointments, the first of which is a parking clerk. Greg, do you want to describe the historic role here and what we're doing tonight?
right. So the parking clerk serves as the appealing authority for parking violations, so traffic, parking tickets. So the police department is responsible for enforcement. But if there is a question or request to appeal all that, then it needs to go somewhere besides the police department to appeal. This is seldom that it happens, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. But it is, per the Mass General Law, it's important to have a parking clerk identified, just, for the administration of those appeals. Surprisingly, the Mass General Law says it is the select board who appoints that position of parking clerk position for the town. My recommendation is Steve Silverstein. So this is again an appealing authority, less like the actual administration of the parking fine or otherwise. And I believe Steve is both removed from parking enforcement. He's not a police officer, but he also has an understanding of the situation of parking downtown. Like he's the one who goes to the parking authority meetings and who I've assigned to figure out parking for the town, particularly downtown going forward. So, yeah, my recommendation is Steve Silverstein.
What's the stipend, or is there a stipend associated with this?
There has been in the past. Stephanie and I have discussed it. Yeah, so $3,000 what Stephanie and I determined.
So that's what the discussion is, that it's $3,000?
Yes, because there has been stipends in the past, and so we want to be.
So what is done today? Like who's handling this task today?
Yeah, not very often. So it is handled in the treasurer collector's office, who does consult with the police department. Again, it's only 4 or 5 times a year at most, and in all likelihood, if the police department generally is gonna, I mean, unless it's a pretty clear, distinct reason, if they park in a handicapped position, then they're probably not gonna repeat it anyways. And the treasurer collector's office will defer to whatever the police department recommends.
Are we getting a bang for a buck for $3,000 for 5 different?
That's fair, but there's already historical precedents for paying that second, so we wouldn't want to somebody just arbitrarily decide not to pay.
When was the last time we paid somebody for this job? To David's point,
Back when Cheryl Payne was the treasurer collector, so years ago, I don't recall.
Greg,
Yes, do you know?
So, I have a couple of comments and requests for the board. The last time somebody was paid for that was when Cheryl Payne was, and it was when the assistant treasurer collector, Sherry Kate Lewis, was appointed as the parking clerk at that time. The second at that time was $4,500. Had been in that office for the past, the treasurer collector's office for the past. I know that she was from 2011, I believe, forward up until she left. Prior to that, we had a separate parking clerk. Who was an appointed parking clerk and actually had an office within the town. Now, yes, all of the parking tickets do come from the police department over to my office. We work with Kelly and Ryan and City Hall systems where the tickets are uploaded, entered, funds are sent over. I have access to City Hall systems, Kelly and Ryan. I've done the hearings and abatements prior, my experience in it. And I was requesting that
understood. Thank you.
Board would like, we can table this decision and I can discuss further with treasurer collector and Welch about this.
can you say that again?
If the board would like, you can table this and I can come back to the board after further consideration.
Yeah, I'm kind of just concerned as to if it's not broke, what are we trying to fix, and are we just trying to, why are we changing gears for no apparent reason?
All right, I think I'll follow up with the town administrator on the history and the salary or the stipend question, and we'll bring this back for a subsequent meeting at that point. Any other comments before we move from this topic on the board? Okay. All right, let's move on to 5B, which is the dissolution or discharge of the fire station building committee.
So, Mr. Chair, project is complete. So, and I think quite successfully, so even more so than our wildest experience, we were able to accomplish all the ad alternates, and the building is, beyond it, even the warranty from the general contractor. And so I would recommend the discharge of the fire station building committee. They haven't even met in probably more than.
And the mezzanine is now complete, so all the
Yeah.
major phases are complete and looks fantastic. So, any questions on the discharge of the fire station building committee? I'll add my congratulations to the work of that committee, and the fire station is beautiful. We've met in there several times. I've gotten, I think at least 2 tours from the new chief over the last year, and it seems that the department is settling in quite nicely over that time.
Thanks.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move
Move.
to discharge the fire station building committee.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. All right, very good.
that means I'm fired.
I'm pretty sure you're still on a few more committees here and there.
Couple lying around, but that was a good one. We did a lot of good work, those guys, for the most
Mhm.
part.
All right, next, let's see, we are definitely at 7:15, so I'm going to read the notice for a hearing concerning the liquor license at Sanctuary. So notice, sorry, what was that? Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. All right, very good. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, as amended, that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, August 6, 2024 at 7:15 at Town Hall, Room 201, 195 Main Street, Maynard, Massachusetts, 01754, to consider the application for a transfer of a Section 12 restaurant all alcoholic beverages license for Tomorrow Never Knows Incorporated, doing business as Sanctuary, manager Shannon McNulty at 82 Main Street, Maynard, Massachusetts. Hybrid option attendance via Zoom using the access instructions on the posted agenda to be found at www.townofmaynard-ma.gov. Copy of application is on file with the Office of the Select Board. All right, so the hearing is open. Greg, you just want to give us an overview on what we're here to discuss?
Well, actually, maybe we can introduce the applicants.
Sounds good. Would you like to come on up? And I'll just note that the mic is here, so just direct your comments in this direction so we can make sure people can hear you. But would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Shannon McNulty, and I one of the owners of Tomorrow Never Knows, and I will be operating as the manager.
Fantastic. And so we're just here to look at a license transfer.
There was element of transfer from Royals to this partnership, and therefore they would also like their liquor license. But they would also separately, in the next item is for common victular and the entertainment. Yeah, so this is one of the steps in the process. The board is the local licensing authority, but it is very much a state prescribed process.
Very good. I'll open up to the board for any questions for the two individuals here.
I have a quick question. First off, thank you for taking on the role of the new owners of Sanctuary, which has become a beloved business and venue in our community. And we're happy. I think I can speak for all of us in saying that we're happy that we'll continue to bring people to town, which is fantastic. My questions really is just maybe none of my business, and if it is, don't just say that. The name, what is it? Tomorrow Never Knows. What's the association between Tomorrow Never Knows? When did that develop? And how is it associated with Sanctuary?
So Tomorrow Never Knows is a Beatles song, just how we got the name. But we incorporated back in April as a part of the process of acquiring the business, and desired, rather than purchasing the LLC directly from the Doyles, rather we just decided to kind of form our own entity and kind of start fresh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
My wife just called me a loser because I didn't know it was a Beatles song.
Well, I know who the Beatles are. I recognize
We'll
the
appreciate
name.
you.
Mike, I know Mike knows.
Yeah, well, you just quoted another Beatles song in giving your response, didn't you? I'm a loser. Yeah.
Time to put her on mute.
All right.
I would just like to add my own welcoming. I haven't met you guys yet, but I'm looking forward to doing so. And just to reiterate what David said about welcoming you to the community and being grateful that people such as yourselves are able to take this on. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Very good. I myself had the opportunity to stop by this weekend for Shakespeare in the Park, which unfortunately due to the rain became Shakespeare in Sanctuary. But again, opening the doors to the community is something that we really appreciate about the old owners, and to see you continue that tradition is starting off on the right foot, to say the least. So my question is, any major changes for the business expecting or planning?
Yeah, and the first major change is we'll be upgrading the sound system, so we can attract a bigger name national talent, to make it really as fun and that they seek to come to when they're touring through. We are hoping to build a commercial kitchen, so we can service our patrons with food and beverage. And also, really keep the place busy all the time. Jazz brunches, gospel brunches, kids program, family program, just to really make it the community cornerstone that's been over the years and make it the best it can be.
Very good. And what are your backgrounds? What got you into this?
So, I'm a musician. I actually performed at Sanctuary, myself, which is how I kind of came to know it. So I sing in a wedding band, but I also produce events, and I was a high school music teacher for 14 years in Marlboro. So I'm kind of bringing all of my mishmash of experience into kind of the general management of Sanctuary the business and the event planning.
Are you both Maynard residents?
No, I'm in Boston.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you're aware, maybe, Maynard does have a history with, obviously with the arts that has developed over the last several years, but it's particularly with music. And downtown, there are areas and, you know, historically, some famous bands actually rehearsed right downtown over the course of time, such, I mean, we had, the Cars would be there periodically to rehearse. There was a lot of locals, Jay Giles Band, and others of my era of the, you know, the late 70s, early 80s that would rehearse and actually record downtown. And then when the Sitting Bull was here, which you might remember, they also brought in Jay Giles, Magic Dick, all the guys that were associated with the Jay Giles Band. And it was well known for its music then.
Tim Hess actually told me that in the movie theater, maybe, there's some big reels of audio tape from some of those rehearsals and performances.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, so the fact that you're going to expand the business and maybe we can start seeing some, up and coming bands, which at the time when Jay Giles would play, they were more than up and coming, they were well known. And, you know, just a small venue for a big group, you know, and that went national, so.
I was gonna add Talking Heads, but I learned that from Tim Hess, so I suppose you might.
Talking Heads is another group.
Yes, I grew up in New York. I went to school in Northeastern in Boston and found myself in the music business for about 15 years until I had my third child and I pivoted into real estate. And I got really lucky, got into some multifamily real estate, and what Shane called me 4 months ago. There's this opportunity, and I said, well, who passes this thing up? And we're doing that. And we're really grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the community and to really foster, carry the torch for what the doors. And we're just looking the best we do. I'm so excited. So,
And I'll mention too, we actually have a third partner who is here tonight. He's visiting family on Nantucket, but his name is Caleb Weldon. He's also a high school music teacher, performer, master performer, jack of all trades. So we're very grateful.
HVAC tech, and he owns a audio.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best sound engineers in the world.
You're on your way.
Yeah.
Good team.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the boards before I open up to the public? All right, this is a public hearing, and so are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
All right, we'll move to, I guess the first one is accept and approve the section 12 restaurant all alcoholic beverages license transfer application for Tomorrow Never Knows Inc., which is from a Beatles, DBA Sanctuary at 82 Main Street, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And I believe we've another motion.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with moving to authorize the town administrator's office to distribute the section 12 restaurant all alcoholic beverages license for Tomorrow Never Knows Inc. at 82 Main Street on approval from the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, also known as the ABCC, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
Second,
All in favor, David?
Yes.
Lindsay,
yes,
Chris,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Very good. That's both motions. And I will make a motion myself to close the public hearing at 7:33.
I will second that.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Lindsay,
yes.
Chris,
yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Congratulations, welcome, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Let's wait for the next item too.
Oh, that's right. This one's outside of the hearing. Yes,
Is it possible to move back to the general public comment section? I screwed up. I should have spoken at that time. I had the opportunity to speak and it's
what is your public comment about?
just, I no longer comment that I need to make. I don't want to interrupt this entire
I'm
process.
sorry, is your public comment related to this item in the hearing?
In the first section,
And just in a couple words, what is the public comment about?
I want to put something on the agenda for a bylaw change.
Okay, we'll get to you in just a moment. I'll entertain that in a little bit. Okay. Sorry, we're gonna move on to 6B, which is the common vic license, which happens outside of the public hearing. Greg, just want to give us a quick overview on what this is.
No, so similar to the alcohol license, the partnership is looking to sort of continue some of the services that the dealers are providing, essentially, including vigil, which is like, you know,
Selling.
yeah, and entertainment. We want to be able to have those concerts, have those events.
So I will move to accept and approve the new common victualler and entertainment licenses at Sanctuary 82 Main Street, Maynard, under the corporation Tomorrow Never Knows Inc., authorizing use of digital signatures.
Second,
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes,
Chris,
yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. And I believe that concludes our business with the new owners. All right, now congratulations. Good luck. So, all right, very good. I've received a polite request to go back to public comment. Is there any objection from any members of the board? All right, I'm gonna go back to 3B, which is public comments. Sir, you may approach. And if you just state you can sit right there. Just make sure you're speaking into here, state your name and address, and there's a 3-minute time limit on the comment.
Mark Fisher, I am a resident active, but my business is in the Maynard. I own the Smoothie King, that in Crossing. I'm
What do you want?
Smoothie King.
Smoothie King, okay.
I'm here tonight to talk about the styrofoam. The styrofoam. Bylaw was passed this year. And the wording of it, and my intentions are to try and change some of the wording of the bylaw. That was passed, specifically in reference to biodegradable foam. The wording in that bylaw is arbitrary. There's no product available that fits the criteria that was outlined. I do have biodegradable foam, and I have the best biodegradable foam on the market. Surprised that my cups don't satisfy this bylaw. So I'm just putting on the radar that I'm trying to change this or present this at the special town meeting in October.
And have you talked to the sustainability committee about this yet?
I have talked to the sustainability committee, I've talked to the board of health. I'm also a member of the Maynard EDC committee or economic development committee. I've talked to a number of people. And I talked to the board the chair of the bylaw committee. So I had to talk to many people.
And I believe the original bylaw was drawn up, lack of a better word, by the Green Communities.
I
Committee.
can't remember. I don't
Yes.
remember. I don't want
So
to quote.
it was
so-
it's sort of collaborative.
Yeah, so I would think they would want to be
Yeah.
consulted in some fashion, given that it was there, just so they can understand what the issues might be. And did you say you wanted to put it on the
the special town
Special
meeting.
town meeting
for
coming
bylaw
up.
for bylaws.
What's the deadline for that, Greg?
Next week, but it depends, Neither of them himself, so it's not a town official, so.
It would have to be,
accept his recommendation.
or if there's a citizen's petition, presumably would.
That's true, but as a non-resident, you would have to get signatures from residents.
Right.
Or voters particularly. So although, can I just clarify, you said you've spoken to the Board of Health. However, did you receive endorsements from those bodies to amend the bylaw?
I received a 6-month waiver from the Board of Health and Sustainability Committee, has not really been effective. They haven't really engaged, I think, collaboratively on the issue.
So the bylaw does allow a 6-month extension. The Board of Health is responsible for the enforcement. The exception allows the Board of Health 6-month period. If it finds the requirements of the section would cause undue hardship. So I'm asking some of these leading questions because I already have some of these answers. At the end of 6 months, what would be your plan? Let's say the board doesn't entertain the idea of proposing this bylaw amendment. And you also have the bylaw review committee. I would recommend you ask them for their endorsement as well. What would you do at the end of 6 months?
I have several options. One is to continue using plastic, which I don't know how that serves the environment better than my biodegradable foam. If the town wants me to use plastic, I'll use plastic. But I will be greening myself at every town meeting until my business is sold to someone else or my own business. If that important.
I understand. So my assumption is that Maynard is not the first town to implement this sort of bylaw. And I also expect that Smoothie King is a much larger franchise than just yours in Fair Neighborhood. Are there not Smoothie Kings that are providing some sort of alternative to the product that you're asking to in other towns that also have this same bylaw? This bylaw was largely a reflection of many other towns' bylaws.
So I can answer your question. So Smoothie King, as a brand, is relatively, has had a very low presence in New England. So, for Massachusetts, Maynard was the first Smoothie King. The second Smoothie King is also Marlboro. This issue really hasn't been brought to the forefront with their brand because it's not really, it's not an issue in their, pretty much in their other, in the other states that they have.
Okay, this is a public comment. This is new to me, so I'm not prepared to give too much information. Mike, I believe you're the liaison to the Sustainability Committee. Would you mind checking in with them at some point? And then if we need further action, we can go from there, and I'll discuss with the town administrator as well. Anything
will
else
do.
to add at this time?
No, thank you for your time. I
All right,
appreciate it.
thank you very much. All right, we were on item 7 to discuss the relocation of historic watering trough. Is Ellen Duggan? Yes, you're online. Good evening, Ellen. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Ellen, good to see you. Do you want to give us an overview of the historic significance and then the intended plan for the watering trough outside of the old fire station?
Sure, thanks. I think, as you know, the Historic Commission has been somewhat concerned about the Lorenzo Maynard watering trough. Maynard is quite fortunate in that it has 4 original water troughs, all placed in beginning 1891 through the early 1900s to support the downtown area. We were surrounded by agricultural farming towns in Acton and Sudbury and Stowe, and we were the commercial district, business banking, markets and so forth. So when people came into town with their horse and buggy, they needed to have a watering trough there, and we had 4 of them. This particular one began its life at the corner of Nason Street and Main Street in 1891. And then when Main Street was widened, it was moved to Walnut in Maine across from Gruber's. And then at some point it was moved to the DPW garage when it was up where the Boys and Girls Club is now. And there it rested until 1969, I believe, when someone in the DPW or town government decided to move it to the present location. We have, obviously, the Historic Commission, been somewhat concerned that we would lose ownership of it if that land was sold. Initially, the first PNS, well, they decided they wanted it there, and I think they had agreed to care for it, knowing that it was still a town historic artifact. But when that fell through and the RFP was issued again, we figured we'd better get that out of there and onto town-owned property. So that's what we're here for tonight. I've talked with the riggers who moved the curfew bell from the evangelical church, and they are experienced in this kind of a move, and an excavator. I have talked with Justin and Bill Nemza to be sure that the site we're suggesting would not require another move in any time in the future. I've talked to Chief Noble to be sure that it would not impact any sight lines of traffic. We're suggesting that it be moved up Summer Street, across from Anytime Fitness, right at the edge on the sidewalk there. And it would continue to be used by the Maynard gardeners for seasonal flowers and seasonal presentations there. So we're here tonight to ask for your permission as the owners of that artifact to move it from one piece of town equipment, property rather, to another town property, piece of property.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Ellen, approximate cost of moving it?
Well, it's a CPC grant, David, so we're in the process. I have a rigger's estimate of $82.23, I believe, excavator who would have to get out and get down there and release it from its current site, so the straps could be put around it by the rigging. They'd have to come in with a crane and a flatbed to move it up the road. And that was $7,000. We're preparing a new bed. It's going to be crusher rock. It'll go down a depth approved by DPW. And then we have details for both those very busy intersections, police details, because traffic will be impacted. This thing weighs about 7,500 pounds. That's an estimate. It's quite old. It's 133 years old. We don't know what the base is like. This is rather a unique move, as was the curfew bell. So there are some certainties. The age certainly is something to consider, the weight, how level is the bottom. So we're asking CPC, David, to answer your question, for $20,000. We know what some of the fixed costs are, but Justin recommended that we have a contingency in there just because of the unknowns.
We're aware of any potential risks of damage to it, given its age or whatever, that would jeopardize the historical piece if it were to be moved.
Well, there are certainly unknowns, David. There's no question about that. And the riggers will take every precaution, as will, there's an insurance and bond, and we'll take every precaution we possibly can, as we did with the bell, to make sure that nothing I think it was the DPW who moved it in 1969. It was probably brute force that got it from the Boys and Girls Club DPW. Now we're going to have a rigger with straps and all kinds of fancy equipment. So hopefully they will move it safely. It's quite an interesting piece. If you ever get to walk around down there, if you stand in front of it, you will see that it says L. Maynard on it, 1891. And around the corner at the bottom is a little watering trough for dogs as well.
I did not realize that.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, Maynard is extremely fortunate that these things still exist after all these years. It was a vote of town meeting appealing to wealthier citizens of the town back in the day to provide things like this. And the Raffertys stepped forward. There's one over at the corner of Sudbury and right across from Ray's bike shop. And there's one up at the Boys and Girls Club that used to be, when that was a rotary, it was right in the middle. That's the Balcom Memorial. And there's a smaller one up at the corner of Concord and Acton Street that was commissioned by the Haynes family, and then this one by Lorenzo.
Any other questions from the board? Ellen, you mentioned it was going, sorry, Chris, did you have a question?
No, no.
Ellen, you mentioned it was going, I'm sorry, in Veterans Memorial Park right across from Anytime Fitness?
Yes, right, kind of, I provided a GPS map at Greg's request in there, but you, right at the top, at the intersection of Nason and Summer, on the inside of the sidewalk, on the lawn, by the tree, there's a Christmas tree there. To the left of that, as you're walking down the hill, there's a level section right at the top of the hill. And because Nason Street is one way, it's not going to impede any sight, lines for the intersection there.
And of all the possible locations, why that particular one? Just
Well,
curious.
we talked about it with the Historical Commission, talked to a few other people. We wanted to keep it downtown because that's its history. And that intersection, Main Street and Nason Street, is raised anyway. And if then you add a 4-foot high, obstruction like the watering, if you put it in the middle down there across from Sanctuary, that was not going to meet with the chief's approval, we figured. So we wanted to keep it downtown, and we thought that was a place where people would see it. It would be in Memorial Park. It would still be downtown, not far from its initial resting place. So we're not married to that, but that's the area that we've investigated and talked with Dustin and the chief and others and the excavator, and it seems to be the best place for it that we could think of.
Very good. All right. Any other comments or questions for Ellen? In that case, I will entertain a motion.
I will
Yeah.
move to approve the application for the use of $6,500 from the Cultural District Enhancement Fund. Oh, I'm reading the wrong one. Sorry, I will move to approve the relocation of the historic watering trough at 1 Summer Street to Veterans Memorial Park in accordance with the proposal of the Maynard Historic Commission as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Everyone's at our Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Ellen, thank you very much for your, as always, thorough work, and we're appreciative of hopefully the CPC if they approve that, and we're looking forward to seeing it in Veterans Memorial Park.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Alan.
All right, now we can move on to item 8, which is the CDF grant, and Jean McGuire is here, I believe, to speak about this issue. And she is making her way up now. We almost approved it without even hearing from you.
No, thank you very much for considering this. So this is sort of supplemental grant to the one that the town very kindly gave us last fall for the library landscape improvement project. And so most of that project has been completed. Chose the best possible time right in the midst of a heat wave this summer, weeks of a heat wave, but it's all doing really well. It's beautiful. I hope that you'll all get a chance to go over and see it. And we owe thanks to the town for the CDF grant and the Maynard community gardeners and friends of the library who have volunteered and have been watering every single day, which has to be done over the next year. So they've been very dedicated, and so it's looking great. So we had a combination of things happen. Some of the costs that we got estimates for back, a year ago, things ended up being a little more expensive. And then we decided to rethink some things because they were expensive and do something else. And then also we decided to add some hardscape, some stones. So basically this is to help us finish up the project properly. The public really seems excited about it. All the plants are, things that are native to New England. And so it's something that in the long term, it's not going to require watering past the first year on a regular basis. And it will be good for the wildlife.
And we'll have a bench so that people can sit in the largest of the two gardens in the parking lot side and just sit and enjoy it. Okay. So, yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
I have one question. This is kind of just out of curiosity. Who maintains the landscaping at the library? Does the town do that, or is the library responsible for that? I mean, I know they're sort of one and the same, but.
Yeah, no, the library is responsible for that, in terms of the landscape, so we, hire a landscaper who does the mowing and cleanup and weeding, that kind of thing. And the DPW takes care of snow and ice removal. So the same landscaper who does our regular work, was the one we ended up selecting for doing this special garden project. They really did a nice job.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Lindsay, you already read it, so go ahead.
All right, I will move to approve the application for the use of $6,500 from the Cultural District Enhancement Fund by the Maynard Library for landscaping improvements at the library as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. As always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great news.
Mike, you've got that international delay, because I'm beating you with the seconds all the time, so.
Yeah, it has a way of doing that.
Gene, you're actually still up here for contracts, which we're gonna start with library stairwell.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Justin's got a. Actually, not too much. I see contracts and just assume you're gonna be on a lot of them.
Well, assisting June then.
All right, very good. Who wants to start with the house doctor contract for the library stairwell?
Good, I'll give you a little bit of context, please, and I'll let Gene, her Castle, so, the town has been very generous in the appropriation of free cash towards the analysis of the stairwell. I think it's the eastern stairwell,
Yeah, the northeastern.
northeastern stairwell, so if you're coming in from the parking lot, not on the, anyways, come from the parking lot, and you go towards the back, go towards the right, and then that's the stairwell we're talking about. And there's been a leak for
Many years.
a long time, and so, yeah, and, further down the rabbit hole we go, it got to the point, and the town had been appropriating money towards sort of examining, figuring out what exactly was wrong. Eventually it was determined that we do need to have a professional company come out and take a look at it. Although Justin and the rest of, Kyle Brandon and the rest of the facilities crew have done their best, and they can, it just seems to be outside of it. So, right, so at the last town meeting, the town appropriated an additional $50,000. So there's a balance right now of $74,000, and that's a little bit of context as to what the question is going to be. We were hoping that we would go identify how much we would even make the repairs itself. But we have some bad news. It seems to be much more than that, and we need to pay for the design work and the project management work for that. That's what we're requesting this evening for the board. It's your endorsement for those contracts with Lee Rowe Corporation. Lee Rowe is one of the house doctors that I procured a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. So procurement law does allow you to have like designers on retain. And this is one of them, but you still have this contract with them specifically according to whatever project you end up using. I didn't have to go back out to get a new design, but I can choose one of the designer systems to be best fit. We found Lee Rowe that happens to be in this case, and availability, etc. But their scope includes $64,000 again to be able to design and project manage whatever. And I think that, I don't know, I don't want to like misspeak, so I don't know if we even have right now a good sense of what the final cost may be.
It could be, so depending on the process, so to kind of circle back on this. The leak that Gene has inherited, that I've inherited, was part of the design modifications of the library, so they enhanced the window components. And it is not a roof It is found to be an envelope issue with some leaking as part of the improved window casement and the masonry envelope that is surrounding it, which is beyond the scope of just a simplistic repair. So we had to have it reverse engineered through the architectural firm we hired from Lero to find out what the original design intent was and why it has failed. So we're at the point where they have also indicated some failures due to the fact that water is seeping behind the masonry and maybe causing a bow in the external wall. So we are looking at putting out a base bid for the immediate leak repair while also repairing the potential of the bowing out masonry. That could be several $100,000, several $100,000. But we are looking at it as a base bid and an alternate approach. But that being said, this is why we need construction admin. We need complete architectural redesign documents, and we will need an OPM permission form. So that this is really the onboarding of the OPM, architectural design, and a bid process to realize what the cost is.
Is this like a warranty issue or are we well beyond that?
We're well beyond the warranty at this point.
When was the initial improvement that you mentioned?
6.
2006, thank you.
And we are a bit further ahead than we were before because Lero and their subcontractor did come last fiscal year and did a water test. So now we're not really just kind of guessing anymore. They really did a thorough, water test to pinpoint what the issues were and what was making this happen. Because there had been attempts to try to, try different things that might cost less and see if it could be fixed. Roofers were tried and things like that. And so now, a proper water test was done, and it is, it's that, waterproofing was not put up far enough in the beginning. There's weep holes that need to be fixed, and then a lot of mortar has deteriorated. We're not sure that the building was actually repointed. The brick was repointed back when it was, renovated in 2006. So that could also be, part of the issue. But so that wall in particular, the wall is, just bulging out because the water's getting behind. And
Yeah, really the design flaw and potential scope of the modification added up to a situation that is causing deterioration. And if we let it go, it will cost a significant amount of money, and we're lucky to get to a point where we've isolated the failure point. We were able to have the architectural team, like I said, reverse engineer that back to the fact that they are confident in the failure point. And now we need to cure that properly in designing.
Greg, would you anticipate this would be within the scope of free cash allocation, or is it beyond that?
I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of questions, great questions. I couldn't even begin to ballpark what our free cash is gonna be, so I don't wanna.
Well, no, I know that. I'm just thinking, is it going to have to be bonded in some other fashion?
Great question.
Once we execute this, David, we will have a hard contract engineered estimate that will be able to help drive us, even if we execute it. Very similar to the golf course route, even similar to alumni bleachers. This is the next step to have confirmation of real costing measures.
Yeah,
And the reason I mention it all is because we need to get it onto that capital list that we discussed last week, that if suddenly we have another project.
So David, it's on there every year, which I work with Gene. Gene actually puts this capital on there, and step by step, I think Lindsay might have been your liaison at one point. Yeah.
Lindsay and then Ben, who
Yeah.
also see us here.
So they're aware of the order of operations on this, but again, we enhance it to the point of when we have, understanding of what next steps are. And the beauty with that 5-year forecasting of the capital is, if you ever look at it as design, engineering, construction costs, and as we start to enhance that capital request format, we look at design costs, and then we anticipated engineering costs. At this point, we can't anticipate construction costs because it's unknown at this point.
But you're asking the right questions that we will eventually ask, and I'd like to do that in partnership with the capital planning committee. Because if this is whatever this cost may be, and we can combine a bonding scheme with another project, then you get more bang for your buck, which is the preference of the bond council. I don't like to bond a certain amount.
That's why I want to have the discussion so that it's on the radar, so that when we have our discussions, it's not suddenly a new.
So the best way.
There's another override we need to.
Nope. Best way, and with capital and how we've been working on all these projects, once we execute this, if we execute this contract, the construction admin, we're essentially shovel ready. And we know that we're stacking shovel ready projects, so we have real understanding of what those cost measures are. If you look at the capital projects within the platform, I would say 90% of them aren't shovel ready to 95, and a lot of those costing measures are high level estimates. This will get us some confirmation where if there was a conversation, a bonding for multiple facilities projects, we should have a 3 or 4 shovel ready with real understanding of what that costs would be.
The other point would be that perhaps it's a historic building that we could actually rely upon CPC for some portion of the funding. I don't know, because it's been revamped or whatever, it may not qualify, or they may have other projects that are already targeted or what have you, but those are all funding sources that we should explore, be aware of, and take advantage of if we can get access to them.
So Dave, the beauty of that is once we're done this process, if CPC was an opportunity, this would be the documentation they would need.
Any other questions from the board?
No?
I'm clear. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contract with Lyro Corporation for library stairwell design and project management services in the amount of $64,000 as presented and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you both very much. Moving on to contract 9B, which regards the leasing agreement for the ambulance.
Yep. So this pairs with the contract that the board had already moved, with Greenwood Emergency Vehicles to acquire the ambulance. This is the financing scheme to it. Ideally, we would have had both at the same time, we just didn't have one ready. So this is how we're gonna pay for it. Same story as the acquisition. The town has already appropriated funds through the ambulance receipts, so I just needed to, this was above my pay grade, so I just needed to vote to approve it.
And I will move to approve. Oh, if there's any questions from the board, sorry.
Are there any questions from the board? David,
I will move to approve the master lease agreement with tax exempt leasing corp for the lease to purchase acquisition of a Horton 623 type 1 ambulance and equipment, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
any questions or comments from the board? Okay, all in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Moving on to 9C, the Lowell Regional Transit Authority Agreement for FY 25.
Yep, so this is an annual occurrence. We have had a great relationship with the LRTA, so they're in tight partnership with our council on aging in particular. I am the town's representative to the LRTA. I'm also on LRTA's. Can't remember the title, but it's their finance board. And yeah, so I enjoy being a part of that organization, sort of hearing what the greater Lowell region happens to be up to. We are a member of LRTA just because that's how the contiguous town sort of got our way over us. Like Acton is a member, therefore we realize people. But we are certainly their furthest municipal member. So yeah, I highly encourage the board to approve this. Right, and continue to reap the rewards of this partnership.
Any questions?
Do we have an understanding of how much this is used at the moment?
Every day, so we rely on our partnership for the vans itself. Now the commuter shuttle, which is no longer going on, but I would love to get that back up. You know, pre-COVID, it was at its heyday, and we literally had to call Lowell to get additional shuttles, because we had so many going back and forth to the South Acton train station. So that could come back, but there's a number of factors that sort of brought it to a close, and well, temporary, hopefully. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, we're in touch with them, maintenance, etc. That's LRTA.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agreement with the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, LRTA, for fiscal year 2025 as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Second,
All in favor? David,
yes,
Chris,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes,
and I am a yes as well. Item 9D has been removed, so we'll move on to 9E, which is a maintenance agreement for a connection path that Emerson Medical is seeking to the Naylor Court area.
Right, so I think we're joined by attorney, Liberdoni, who now I'm seeing for the first time face to face. Thank you, welcome, attorney Liberdoni, and he is representing 21 Maynard LLC, as you said, Mr. Chair. That's where the Emerson Medical is. And they want to put a pedestrian access from the parking lot, that private parking lot into the Naylor Court parking lot, the public parking lot across from the movie theater. So this is the maintenance agreement that is included. Just to sort of, we have an understanding of what the relationship is and who's gonna do what. But I would defer to them if they have any further detailed clarification. This is an town staff, by the way, so I feel pretty confident.
Town staff, town council as well. Okay, Attorney Liberdino, do you want to just give an overview?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, happy to give the board an overview of this project. So 21 Maynard LLC is an affiliate of Bullfinch. They're the owner of this property. They've owned it a little over 5 years at this point. Emerson is a tenant at the property, and they're in connection with expanding their medical office use. We went and got some zoning relief from the planning board, mainly to allow for less on-site parking that would have otherwise been required under the zoning bylaw. Part of the reason we were successful in getting that zoning relief is because we expect that visitors and employees will utilize this municipal parking lot on Summer Street next door. And to kind of meet the goals of the downtown overlay district under the zoning bylaw, we proposed this pedestrian path connection and an accessible path that would allow someone who parks in the municipal parking lot to walk across and over to the 11 Main Street property and vice versa. We had a lot of good collaboration with DPW in trying to cite the location of this path, given some of the site constraints that are there, particularly there's an EV charging station we wanted to avoid, and try to make it a visible connection between the two properties. So DPW has been very involved in this work. We also reached out to Police Chief Noble to see if they had any public safety concerns, and there were none for this project. So as part of this maintenance agreement, the owner of this property is agreeing to maintain the pedestrian path and kind of the improvements around it on behalf of the town at the owner's cost. Mainly we expect it will be, snow shoveling, any sort of landscaping, things like that, to keep the path clear and accessible for those using it. So this agreement will allow the owner to enter the property to conduct these services, again, at its own cost. And, we're here tonight seeking the select board's approval over this.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have one. I assume our roles here strictly is just because it's public property, that we need to provide authority to allow it to be utilized. And I appreciate that. And I also want to emphasize, I am not opposed to this whatsoever. I think it's important to help our businesses and to make sure that that if we can provide access to them, and by providing access to better parking and better access to the building and everything else, that's a positive for us. My question is, are we in any way losing a parking space or spaces as a result of this in that parking area that we are going to be putting the walkway from. Reason I ask that is I did hear rumblings that perhaps restriping of the parking lot could save a parking spot versus the plan that was to just place the walkway in a specific location. I don't know if that's true, not, whatever, I may have misunderstood. But my point is this finalized, or does the planning board have another go at it as to where the exact location of the walkway is to be?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer all those questions. So because the walkway is located on, most of the walkway is located on the town-owned lot. That's really out of the planning board's jurisdiction, and it's within the select board's jurisdiction. So that's part of the reason why we're here tonight seeking the board's approval over this. Citing this pedestrian path does result in losing one parking space. But in connection with the zoning relief that we obtained from the planning board, we did conduct a parking study of this parking lot as well as other public parking spaces in the vicinity of the 11 Main Street building. And the conclusion from that parking study was that there's ample parking available to accommodate not only the increased medical office use that we expect at our property, but there should be ample excess spaces above that. So the result is that losing one parking space in exchange for creating an accessible pathway and having the owner next door maintain it on behalf of the town was a good overall deal for the town, given the overall benefits, and that outweighs losing one parking space. The only negative aspect of that.
And there's no way to locate or restripe that parking lot that would prevent the loss of one parking space? Because, the other businesses in the area, whether it be the movie theater or restaurants that are in the general area, we hear quite a bit of issues of concern, even about one parking space. Because if a person has to walk further than they have to walk, they may choose to go elsewhere. So parking is always a concern. And so I guess my point would be, whatever can be done to save parking spaces, I would appreciate. And if there's a way to restrike and avoid having a lost parking space, I think that probably might be a win-win.
That we appreciate that comment. I think we looked at whether that was an option to restripe. We didn't do a full study of it because I think everybody that we were working with when it came to the town, none of the select board members obviously, but that this proposal that we had here about kind of fulfilling the goals of the downtown overlay district by making it more pedestrian friendly with this accessible pathway would outweigh the loss of one parking space, given that this has about, I believe 150 or 180, parking spots. And just, having the backup of the parking study that we conducted supports the conclusion that we brought and that we've been discussing with the town over the past couple months.
Any other questions or comments from the board? We do not need to move this tonight if we don't want to. Or we can.
I could add that I know that people have complained about parking spaces downtown, but if the parking study was done and the planning board has reviewed that, I would consider that really sufficiently reviewed, for me at least, to move forward. I think that that's enough subject matter experts giving thought and consideration to this issue. And I do think gaining an accessible path outweighs any detriment that we might see from losing one parking spot. And I'd also add, I know that I think the planning board actually did a site visit to go look at the parking spots. So again, I think that has been quite thoroughly considered. by planning board and the town.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other comments or questions?
I just have, the only question I would have is, does this affect in any way the open table operations?
So thank you. That's a good question. In that corner of the parking lot, Open Table keeps their kiosk, I'll call it, but we understand that they move that into position when they run their weekly service. And there should still be enough space in that corner after this work is done to still store that their kiosk when it's not in use.
I'm getting a confirmation of that from Justin in the room here.
Yeah, it's also in the maintenance agreement, it does say that, the owner shall use commercial and reasonable efforts to minimize the incursion of town's operation, and the use of the municipal lot or any activities taking place in our may be permitted by the town, including without limitation, the managed open table. So
Yes.
there is some sensitivities to open tables operations, even in the agreement.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to make sure I'm on the right one. I am. I will make a motion to approve, to approve I'll never forget that mistake. I'll tell you that much. I will make a motion to approve the maintenance agreement with 21 Maynard LLC relative to an accessible pedestrian connection at 11 Main Street as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing the improvements made to the path.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to 9B, which is MS4 compliance maintenance agreement or amendment thereof.
Yeah. Justin Marco, Public Works Director. This is somewhat a cut and dry situation. It's that time of year again. Our fiscal year changeover. This is an amendment to our overall support contracts with VHB, specifically for MH4 support to go into our year 7 permit process to stay in compliance with both federal and state laws that regulate our stormwater discharge into the Asco River. This is just our year 7 approach, meeting that criteria. This is a minimum criteria meeting. I think we've had these discussions many times when we're talking about stormwater and river development with a utility or a feasibility approach towards one. This is the minimum requirements of meeting a permit aspirations for year 7. This is handled within our operating budget. You will notice in the financial impact that there is some fluctuation between our operating budget and the actual cost of this amended contract. That delta is the only money we have to actually perform real maintenance or construction work on our stormwater system. So just be aware that we typically use about $10,000 to $20,000 to actually repair and maintain our system. If there's any questions, I know this may be new for Lindsay, so if there's still more questions, now sometimes the great opportunity. But I'm all ears.
Any questions from the board? Just in the greater context, thinking about the stormwater presentation we received a few months back, how long before we need to start talking about that kind of utility or other funding mechanisms to maintain compliance with MS4?
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off of Mike's question to the board meeting is, if you remember.
Which question from Mike in the quad board meeting?
So where are we at with the feasibility study?
Yes.
In regards to a stormwater utility. I'm trying to take a step back if the board remembers that we signed an amendment about 3 months ago to our previous year's contracts to reallocate some funds towards a grant application for a EPA grant. So that grant has been submitted and we are awaiting award if we receive award in the fall. If we receive award of that grant, the funding mechanism to complete the feasibility study will be in place. If we do not receive funding from that grant, We are really still exactly where we are, which is kind of stuck in our 10 to 15% completion phase of feasibility. No local allocated funds have been allocated for that process, but again, I think we can have a conversation after the grant. After the grant announcements, if we do not receive it, we can have conversations how we enhance and move that forward, or if we talk about priority metrics. But I will say that the
Real quick,
feasibility,
What was the total amount for that grant?
so roughly about $200,000.
Thank you. Please
So-
continue.
But within that, the feasibility study is also included and has been included in the capital plans for many years as well, so. It can kind of be circled back for. If we receive the.
So we're just going to the feasibility, you didn't really answer the meat of the question.
Right,
Saying
so-
we need that to get to the next
So,
step.
yeah, we need funding to complete the feasibility study. If we receive funding, the feasibility study could take upwards of a year. For completion.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions on this agreement? I'll entertain a motion in that case.
Move to approve amendment number 5 for the MS4 compliance support engineering contract number 1216 between the town of Maynard and Vanessa Hagen Breslin, VHB, for year 7 of the town of Maynard's MS4 stormwater management program, effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, in the amount of $121,500 as presented, and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Moving on to the hazard mitigation plan.
So before Justin explains this, I want to give the course a lot of credit for this is one of many sort of master planning documents, if you will, that Justin really stewards and holds the hand of those of us that are who's probably along the way to tell us how important these things are. This particular hazard mitigation plan, I don't think any of it is going to be of a significant surprise to anyone. You know, we do need to be aware of whether it be climate change or other sort of like emergencies before they occur, and how the town can sort of think about these things and strategize to be prepared. This particular plan is critical as we apply for other grant opportunities, other larger plans, how it sort of fits into a bigger scheme. But Justin's been really instrumental in making sure we get this small piece of the larger puzzle towards Maynard's future. All right, that was it. So what is the hazard mitigation plan?
So the hazard mitigation plan is actually a templated process through the Federal Emergency Management Agency that funnels down to MEMA, which is the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. When we're talking about hazard mitigation plans, they are really a templated model by the federal agency. And about 2 years ago, the town of Maynard, through our local emergency management committee, I am the assistant local emergency manager. We applied for a BRIC grant to the federal government to update our hazard mitigation plan, which was outdated. Through that process, we were awarded it, but then COVID hit. So it's actually really kind of award COVID, which has delayed the onboarding of this. We have finalized that hazard mitigation plan with a localized team that included volunteers through several communities, including town staff, through major departments such as the police, fire, DPW, etc., to develop and update our hazard mitigation plan. It was somewhat of an adoption and modification of our previous hazard mitigation plan because most of that never came to fruition. And then an enhancement process with collaboration through our MVP program, which is our vulnerability preparedness program. And this has all been compiled into what you see in front of you, which is the hazard mitigation plan. FEMA has blessed this as a final option, and this resolution actually is the cherry on top that is required to meet the federal requirement. This then opens the door, as Greg has said, through FEMA for multiple actionable grants to assist us in accomplishing some of those criteria in our hazard mitigation plan. But subsequently, through the state programs such as MVP, housing grant, housing choice grants, MassWorks grants. Every single program under the state grant process actually gives you points for subsequent program planning such as hazard mitigation, MVP. So as part of this, we are actually put ourselves in a better position for future action grants through our MVP process and many others. And then that's really, this is a plan that actually has to be updated every 3 to 5 years to stay in compliance. So hopefully we can continue to make progress with that. I know Angela onboarding as the emergency manager. We've really been able to kind of corral and revitalize our local emergency committee, which should be able to focus on planning grants like this and action items to address those issues.
There's chief wellness to, that, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Any questions from the board? And so this is a 120-page document I'm looking at right here. And so what were some of the major changes that?
So some of the major changes are just incorporating what you see consistent with MVP process, which is really a targeting of environmental justice or vulnerable locations beyond just the critical asset failure. So traditional hazard mitigation plans were really, hey, you have a dam, it's 100 years old, this is a high level critical issue. FEMA have really adopted the idea of social injustice and locations of vulnerability versus. So that was really the adaptation of our previous, some additional criteria were added, some additional changes from the previous plan for critical assets. Compared to the last time, our water capacity and sewer capacity are more critical assets. But really they don't go into the fact of you can't produce enough water as a hazard. It's more of a failure point of a critical assets location. So i.e. a sewer pipe under the river is a failure point that could cause an environmental hazard. So just updating that to match Maynard's current situation with its infrastructure and its social aspects, including density growth, etc.
We've got the Massachusetts DPU for that, so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a good collaboration approach. Again, a lot of the programs are really looking at compounding plans so that they can enhance this process. The BRIC grant has been around for a very long time. It's a federal grant that has been around for a very long time and is something that we take advantage of, I would say, from a smaller level. The fire department and previously Chief Stowers, Anthony Stowers, they've targeted a lot of grant opportunities to the federal government, but on a very small scale, such as equipment. But with the hazard mitigation plan that's updated, we can really target more critical assets. We could potentially acquire $500,000 for generator upgrades, things of that nature, and that's really what we're gonna look. So we continue to strive to utilize opportunities with funding outside of our local residents' pocketbook. And this is that next step and a larger conversation. So
Justin, is there anything within the hazard mitigation plan that will be submitted that puts us in a situation, Maynard, that is, in a situation where should we fail to comply, and this is outside of the already regulated stuff from the state, fail to comply with what we put in our plan, that we're subject to any penalties?
no, so part of the reason that we had an outdated plan and there was no penalty is really the penalty is the opportunity for action grants. So if you don't have a approved plan within its time frame and consistent, then you have lost the.
So there's only an upside.
Yes, there's only an upside, yes. But I mean, the federal government is also well aware that there is significant amount of hazards in preparation. A lot of this is more to drive local culture and understanding what your critical locations are and trying to be more proactive in those approaches. You know, this actually piggybacks on a recent conversation we actually had with our local FEMA and walking through and actually identifying our critical assets and their failure points that may impact their operation, which FEMA took a step back and said, oh, we actually didn't think of that. So these are opportunities that we're trying to take advantage of in many avenues. I think there's federal funding out there specifically with the BRIC grant, which is an easier federal grant to go after. That we can maximize some funding opportunities.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the hazard mitigation plan as presented and approve the resolution as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Second,
All in favor, David,
Yes,
Chris,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, item 11 has been removed from the agenda. We'll hope to hear from that at a subsequent meeting as item 12. So we'll move on to item 13, which are the elections. We have two items here. The first is the state election warrant, and then the second is a question on the inclusion of a ballot question for the alumni field bleachers. Greg, do you want to give an overview of each of these and how they interact with each other?
Yeah, so these are, well, the first, the state primary election for September 3rd, 2024. This is rather procedural. There's the warrant is prescribed from the state, and you can see the template that we have, which is largely unchanged year by year, only changes the dates and and in the recent years, we've consolidated all the precincts to the Fowler School. But there is an election on the 3rd of September. And the town clerk needs the select board's approval of this. So we can get the warrant published and printed and out the door for that election.
Okay. This is the state primary, not the general, which is the one where we're putting a ballot question on to be. Sorry,
That's
so
right.
these don't interact.
I'm trying not to confuse.
Very
right?
good, very good. I got them temporarily.
No, it's okay. So
Very
they're
good.
just the kind of standard practice.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the 2024 state primary election warrant with the indicated date, time, and location as Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. From 7 AM to 8 PM with all four precincts at the Fowler Middle School, 3 Tiger Drive, Maynard, as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments from the board on 13A? All right, all in favor, David,
Yes,
Chris,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, now let's do 13B.
Okay. Yep, so this has been a topic recently, and I understand it's very confusing, so I'll do the best I can to sort of clarify one more time. So if the board would like to put a ballot question on, or in addition to the presidential election that's scheduled for November 5th, because that is a state issued election, the November 5th election. The town is required by August 7th, which is tomorrow, to notify the state's election office that of the intention to put this additional question or any questions on that ballot, because it's state controlled ballot. So the question for the board this evening is if the board would like to include a question relative to a debt exclusion authorization relative to the construction of the alumni field bleachers and the associated facilities. And I just want to clarify, there's no dollar amount included on the ballot question. So the Treasury Collector's Office works with bond counsel, like the attorneys and also our borrowing agency to provide these questions. So the ballot question says, this would be, if the board so declares, what would be on the election warrant, which is, shall the town of Maynard be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay for the cost of design and construction of building new bleachers and facilities. And then it kind of describes what those facilities are, but it doesn't say how much might be borrowed. It just says, are you okay with your taxes going up beyond the natural sort of increase of property? So that's the context. And so and I've conveyed this information as best I can to the various powers that be, school committee, planning committee, trying to keep everyone on the same page. right? So the board either gives direction for this to be included on November 5th or not. If it's not on the November 5th election, either the board can have a separate election or the next regular election that is expected in May, that's the local election. So it's up to the board.
Questions or comments from the board? And Natasha from the school committee is here as well. If we have any questions for her.
Rushing at once.
What was that, Mike?
I say we're all rushing at once for this one, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm still wrestling with how this fits into the bigger picture that we were discussing with the joint board last week. And I know this presents challenges of many kinds to a lot of people. I am of the opinion, I think, that so much has been invested at this point that moving it forwards to the voters to make a decision is perhaps the fairest way to go. I am concerned that we need to do a really good job of communication with how this fits into a bigger picture of our long-term capital planning and possible operating cost planning. So I would just want to stress that, and I will continue to stress that again and again, that the quest for a fully educated voter to make decisions on what is likely to be significant increases in taxes over and above what the residents are going to be seeing in January for the Green Meadow project. So like I said, that's my main concern is to really help people how this fits into the bigger picture of all that we're trying to do, and not to just see this in isolation for this one project.
Yeah, I'll allow Natasha, please.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance. I'm a little froggy. So I just wanted to state for the record that thank you for that feedback. We, the school committee, will ensure that the information relating to a potential override that might be needed in the spring is also reflected to help inform voters in our sponsor comments for the article. Also wanted to just clarify, because I know it was something that maybe wasn't obvious all around, but that the school committee is not going to be pursuing bleachers over 750 seats. The school committee, we actually had Brian ask, and I know this came up, Ben, I see you there, about drones. We have been notified that MIAA does not allow drones so we are still exploring opportunities that we could reduce the scope of the press box need, or potentially eliminate that if that's so necessary. And that will be the work that we do between now and town meeting.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question on what you just said, Natasha? I didn't quite hear you finish the sentence. MIA does not allow drones for what?
For sporting events on school property.
So for the purposes of coaching, I think that was the specific question. That's what they won't allow any drones.
No, sorry, Greg.
I'm trying to help you out. So I haven't read this, but I believe Natasha actually, when she said that MIAA is the town's liability insurance provider. And they are highly discouraging of towns in, operating drones. They just don't like insuring towns for the drone usage.
Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. There's two. There's
wow.
MIA, the athletic governing body for the state, but also I believe there are insurance concerns separate to your point. I was in this moment though addressing the athletic, the state's governing body for athletic programs, and they have a drone policy that articulates that drones are not allowed for school events that they sanction.
We're getting off topic from bleachers, but I'm curious, do you know why, Natasha, that policy exists?
I didn't go as far as the why. I just was looking at, I thought it was creative thinking, and God bless you, Ben, for throwing it out there. Let's see what sticks. We just had Mike and Brian look into it right away, and they were just able to come back and just say no. I don't know the background. I just know that it was a recent policy, so I'm guessing something precipitated. I don't know if some legal issue, privacy, boundaries for homes, who knows?
Thank you. Any select board members want to talk before I call on Ben from the capital planning? All right, Ben, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. And for the record, I would like to speak today just as a citizen, not as the capital planning member. Obviously, I speak on behalf of Quad Board as a capital planning member. Just as a citizen, I think first off, thank you, Natasha, for investigating my wacky idea from the Quad Board meeting. Like I said, I've called it wacky in the past, and I will continue to do so. My question that I have for the board, and specifically for Greg, is with respect to the language of the warrant article. The warrant article says, including but not limited to, and it includes the press box, the snack shack, infrastructure required. When I look at that, and again, I'm not a legal expert here, and I see including, and then I hear things like we might not pursue something like that. Is that still allowed if we have our townsfolk vote for something that says including but not limited to? And the reason for it, it sounds like those are the minimum requirements, not the potential of remove. Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, but the question is, shall the town be allowed to? So it's not, what the idea is that, we just want to make sure you're conservative in your scope. This isn't the contract, this isn't the design. It's just saying, just a transparency, like the town voters are being asked to increase their taxes to allow for this project. And then it goes into a certain amount of detail, a certain amount of description, beyond saying, new bleachers and facilities. Like if it just left it at that, there might be questions as to what those facilities may include, and therefore the question gets into a little bit of detail, but not much beyond that. So again, this is just for permission to increase taxes. So you're right to sort of read into it as a informed voter, you should. But the idea is that bond counsel and what you bond for should be should have a certain amount of scale, and this is sort of alluding to what that scale may.
Got it. Well, thank you very much for that. Again, just my own personal belief is that, first off, I'm actually in favor of the bleachers. I'm in favor of these things. I think they're very wonderful things. My concern is, I think, just as has been brought up in the past, is the quantity of things that we are looking for, right? With respect to a senior center, there is a debt exclusion override associated with an operating cost for the school coming up in the in the spring, excuse me. As well as we know that there are some additional projects that we may, as a town, choose to be moving forward with. So the reason for my continued harping on just the language and trying to make sure that we maximize our flexibility as a town, and for the voters to also maximize flexibility for with respect to taxes associated with that, is my concern just as a citizen, and for others. I drive past those bleachers regularly. I'm sure you all do too. We need to do something about it. It's just trying to make sure that we find the right thing that is a conservative approach as a town that we all can take, while we also see that there are other things we need to consider and conservative measures that we need to take as well. So that is all for my comments. Thank you very much, Natasha, and everyone else for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ben. All right, other comments from the select board or questions? All right, I'll join on to Mike's commentary, especially, talking about the need for better voter education about not just this project, but the full set. And I think Natasha had one response to that, but it's, as I said last week, not the responsibility of any one board, but a collective responsibility of all of us town leaders to join together for that education component. In fact, I think if you could take a look at, despite a significant number of disagreements last week, one thing that I think pretty much everybody aligned on was the need for better voter education, but the total number of items that are going to be on future warrants, and that will cost funding. many in the form of tax increases to build out, especially infrastructure. And actually, I think the other thing we all agreed on is the need to make sure that we prioritize that water and sewer infrastructure, speaking to the good advocacy that Justin has been doing, and also connecting to some of the concerns that we have about capacity issues and their connectivity to our ability to be flexible and what we want to do with our land here in Maynard. So that being said, I myself am in favor of putting this on the ballot. I do think it's time to bring to voters. I think we've had the plans for about 6 months ago or so when the school committee and the builders first came to us. And then my main question is, if we were to not go forward with this, if the select board didn't want to do it, when would we? Because there is a significant cost to renting bleachers, a cost that would go up. And you would get a inferior product compared to what we would get if we were to bond out. And that bond is of a limited duration, after which you have a full set of bleachers. And so to me, that opportunity cost of continue to pay for those rentals for bleachers that are not as quality as we would get from not only bleachers, but a full facility, press box and all of that. I think the bang is worth the buck, and we should put that to the town voters. So that's my 2 cents right there on this topic today. Noting that we need to combine that with the voter education and continue to upgrade our abilities to speak to voters, and especially using town meeting as a forum to do that, as we started to do last spring. Any other questions or comments from the board? Would anybody like to make a motion? I will do this one myself. I will move to approve the inclusion of the ballot question for the November 5th, 2024 presidential election, authorizing the debt exclusion for the construction of the alumni field facilities as presented, and authorize the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any further comments? All in favor, David,
No,
Chris,
No.
Mike,
This is tough. Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The motion passes 3-2. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 14, the Green Meadow School Building Project.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, in addition to the regular business of the school building committee, which we can get into in a minute, some administrative action is required. There's just been some turnover of the membership, and so this should reflect that. For example, there's a new member of the school committee. So this just updates and gives the part of the school membership. So I'm seeking the board's approval of the membership.
I'm a bit confused on this one, Greg. Just, we've approved committee membership changes before, but we always got a list. I didn't see a list attached to it. But what's going on with this? Is it a change of oh, there is a list.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
At the bottom.
I didn't highlight the specific changes. I just used that as an example.
Okay, good. Then I'm okay, as long as,
Okay.
all this is what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
Somebody moved on.
Like the letter
moved in.
due to the school committee.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right, sorry. Tony Savard, like, there's just been some changes to the.
But I saw it. Go ahead.
Greg, can you go down the list and just make sure we all understand what the changes are?
Yeah, I'd have to come back to you and tell you, and I will, I don't remember the specific names on this, Greg, you happen to remember off the top of your head? I'm sorry, there's a lot of people on that committee, so I don't wanna tell you the
Yeah.
wrong names as to what the new names are. But I can get back to you, I just didn't highlight it for tonight.
Okay,
This list reviewed by the school department and the Green Meadow School Building Committee. So this list, I'm confident, is accurate. I didn't highlight which names were the changes.
all right, so we have, this is titled the list, right? You know, membership. Oh, what's the rest underneath? the stormwater and all the rest of that? How does
I was
that,
gonna get into that, I just wanted to kind of knock out the administrative bit. And then I was gonna tell you the rest.
okay,
The rest of it is not for the action, this is just, the rest of it is just information, unless you prefer me to go into it now, Chris, I can get
no,
into
no,
it now.
no, just, I'm looking at it and there's a motion and then there's all the stuff underneath it that really has nothing to do with the motion.
You're correct,
Okay, just, all right.
That was my
Sorry,
confusion
guys.
too.
sorry, sorry.
Yeah, for future reference, it's confusing when it's laid out that way to understand what's happening.
I
Yeah.
It looks
appreciate
like a
that.
mistake.
No, that's thankful, thank you for clarifying. See, Greg went on vacation last week and he left me to make all the materials and, yeah.
So all we're doing is changing the name of somebody, and I think it's Greg, I mean, I think it's, I thought I knew even who it
I
was.
think it's Alexis, one of them, maybe.
I guess I was assuming it was Steve Silverstein because he was in the email, but that's probably
No,
wrong.
I'm sorry, no.
Alexis is new,
Yeah.
to the school building committee. And
And
there's
Tony,
there's
maybe
a
Karen.
couple other- there's a couple other names I don't recognize, that doesn't mean they haven't been there.
Right.
All right. So should we be doing that first and then getting into all the verbiage below?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
I'll move to approve the Green Meadow School Building Committee membership as presented and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes,
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
All right, thank you, and I do apologize for that confusion, and now I will get into this other mess that I threw at you guys underneath. So, the school building committee is excited to move into, as I refer to, the demolition phase, like the select board had approved the contract with Northern Construction to start that site work. And it's going right next door to the current Green Meadow School building. So, in the course of that, planning, there was even a on-site meeting, it was last week, but, in the meanwhile, our conservation agent, Julia Flannery, is on maternity leave. So we have, contracted with BHP, our regular town engineering contract, to add Sarah Nalvin, excuse me. Who the board may be familiar with because she also advises the town on stormwater permits. In Sarah's review of this, it seemed that there should be a stormwater permit also applied to that work before that work begins from Northern Construction for that site work. I'm not sure if I would consider that an oversight. I'm not sure if I would, what fingers I would blame as to why that stormwater permit was not executed ahead of time. However, OMS, the Office of Municipal Services, who does provide the staff support to planning board, conservation commission, etc. They are trying to get the conservation commission to review the stormwater permit for that site work before it begins. As of Friday, they were tentatively getting a conservation commission meeting in August. I was just told hours before this meeting that may not be able to occur, but so I will update the board when I have the information. Hopefully, this sort of bureaucratic setback doesn't hinder the long-term plans of the project. I don't believe it will. I mean, we're talking about site work. And not the construction of the new school, but I also can understand some frustration and confusion because I'm referring to some bureaucratic hurdles. But it is important to make sure that all the boxes are checked. Whether it be conservation, planning, stormwater, etc. So that's what the town is doing, but. I know that's confusing, I'm summarizing a lot of back and forth. But Steve's email to me, which I've included to the board, it outlines that, which is. It's determined that the stormwater permit should be applied for and approved before the site work. Okay, that was it.
Any questions? Or any further updates from our two building committee members?
I don't at this time, I'm afraid.
Nope.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions on the Green Meadow School building project? Okay, all right. Thank you for the update, Greg.
No, it's good.
All right. We'll move on to item 15, the senior center. Greg has a note here in the commentary, noting that they have requested, an extension for the timeline for the RFI, which is now due on August 16th.
Yep.
Which we have granted. Chris, do you have any updates as the liaison to this group?
Nothing to add other than what Greg included in the content. That, you know, they're looking to get into, they're looking to get a prospectus back from building 8. They already have the paperwork back from building 9. They had toured all the buildings, and 8 was the one that they wanted to be in the most. It's the one that the contractor that they had accompany them on the site visits thought was most suitable for the senior center needs. So they asked for an extension, which Greg granted, and now they're going to go and seek a proposal for building number 8. And that's really it.
Any questions on senior center building committee or the new information that's come in since last week?
I have a quick question. I saw that Pete Hogan acquired an earmark for them for $50,000. And I believe that the purpose of that, the language was pretty general, can be used for senior needs in a senior center. Is that correct, Greg? And if so, is that, oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I cut you off. I apologize. Keep going.
My question is that they could put toward, you know, a lease if they wanted to?
Good question. So I'm looking over the email to kind of double check it. And ultimately I would actually read the law to make sure like the language of whatever the law says, but I understand your question. So I'm just quoting from the email from Representative Hogan's office. Maynard will receive $50,000 for senior programming and operational costs in this year's FY25 state budget. So I'm not sure. I mean, like I have to look what the law says, but if we could legally translate that into a lease, which I could see you can, it's operational cost. So if or programming or whatever. I mean, like, this is pretty generalized language, senior programming and operational costs. I think there's a pretty valid argument that you could use it for. I mean, yeah, pretty much anything that's related to senior services. But I would verify if I had more time, I would look what the law says, but I mean, the state law is huge, so I have to find it.
Any other questions?
Mine isn't so much a question, but just an appreciation for the work that this committee is doing to move this forwards. I am personally very much in favor of doing all that we can to support this community. I would like them to know that. I think it's going to be hugely valuable for the community as a whole to find a successful resolution to this problem that they have of not having an adequate facilities at this time. So just wanted to make that statement.
I agree, and I'll add on to that, Mike. I think there was a drift between ourselves and them in understanding on sort of the planning, where I think we had received the message pretty clearly that they were moving from a capital request to a leasing request, and even an operational override, but the timing of that, I think, was not completely understood between the two groups, and was shifting rather rapidly. And so I still think the information that they're collecting now, including the extension of the RFI, allowing them to collect more information, and the senior center assessment study, does put them in a good position to be ready for select board to deliberate on that going into the Springtown meeting. Now, deliberating on that does not mean we put it on the Springtown meeting or not, but it means we'll be able to have a robust conversation as these pieces of information come in. And I do think they have been doing a a good and a thorough job so far. And I, along with the rest of you, supported that request for information so we could continue to learn more about the feasibility of such a proposal. So my best to them as they continue to collate, and eventually come back to us to present information. Any other comments on the senior center? Okay. We'll move on to item 16, the acceptance of minutes. Any questions or comments on 4 sets of minutes we have for approval? We've been busy.
I'm trying
A lot
to,
of- a lot of meetings just in time, guys.
I will move to approve the meeting minutes of July 1, July 16, July 23, and July 30th, 2024, as shown. Authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes, yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. We'll move on to the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will, hit the highlights. I'm on vacation next week. I know that's the most important to everyone.
Where are you headed?
Cape Cod. Where's everyone go? Cape Cod. No, the town will be well in. Our town clerk, Diane Reardon, is retiring. She's put a lot of time, as a municipal official, and I very much appreciate the value and experience that she brought to Maynard. And Assistant Town Administrator Stephanie Duggan has been in charge of collecting resumes and scheduling interviewing. That should happen this week. So it's it's exciting to have a new person. I really appreciate Mary's presence in town hall and elections. And then we also have a new veteran service officer, which is exciting, Peter Harville. His office hours are Thursdays. And so he was kind enough to share a little bio, so I encourage the board and public to read that on the town administrative report. So it's exciting. I appreciate Peter, stepping up right away. It's a relatively smooth transition, not going to so I appreciate that. And then hey, we are gonna be finally doing that new traffic light and safety improvements at the intersection of Route 27 and Concord in the very near future. So we've been trying to make sure the town is aware of this for months now. I even passed the sign next to the golf course on my way down from Acton every day, and I'm gonna have to remember to start going the long way around through Stowe to get to work. So I encourage everyone to think about that. Don't be surprised day one when we start shutting it down. But I also, of course, I want to commend the work of Public Works and Justin Marco and the police department for their collaboration. And of course, our town engineer. It's been a long time coming. I'm really looking forward to it. And then there were a lot of the departments have been in a lot of good information. I just want to highlight one more thing. Jean McGuire was here this evening. She's the library director, and I want to congratulate her and the rest of the library staff and library trustees for their hard work and application and success in getting a $15,000 grant from the state to make improvements to their children's area. Their 0 through 6 children's area, which is fantastic. Coincidentally, I was there on Saturday with my own children, and they don't even know that it's about to change in the near future. So, but they do so much good with the town, which is very proud of that. Congratulations to the library, and that's it. Unless there's questions from the board.
Any questions for the town administrator on his report?
Nope.
Very good. We'll do the chair report. So I want to thank everybody who attended and participated and spoke and interacted at the quad board meeting. I know there was a lot of content brought up, a lot of topics discussed. It's a lot of people to get through and hear all at once, but I think there is certainly a lot of value in hearing where everybody sits in their positions. And there's a lot of challenges ahead of us, and I think it doesn't do us any favors to ignore those, but to start tackling them more and more head on as we've been doing in an increasing fashion. And I also really appreciate, as I said that board, the increasing use of data and hard numbers to sort of drive these decisions and conversations as we move forward. So I just want to thank everybody for their participation in that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity to do Shakespeare in the Park, which was actually in Sanctuary when I did it on Sunday. But it was a fantastic event and really appreciate the continued good work of the cultural district and all the events that they sponsor as well. That'll do it for me, and I'll go to David.
Thank you. Yeah, the only comment I have about things that happened relative to my involvement with community issues. Last Wednesday, the night after the quad board, there was a regularly scheduled meeting of the Maynard Housing Trust. Again, we were reviewing the proposals for various issues ongoing at the McDonald's property, Jimmy McDonald's property, that is, down along the river. So everything, we have to approve and make sure that they've done their due diligence in having the right number as agreed upon of affordable units, et cetera. And everything looks good. And the only downside of that evening's meeting was that we, as a housing trust, were the victims of a Zoom bomb. I believe it was probably the same guy who came to our meeting, although I didn't look closely. It was not nice, but we shut it down, so we didn't finish our meeting. But and I guess from what I heard, the same Zoom bomber has been on planning board. It's the same guy apparently. But anyway, something to talk about rather than the time of the times. That's it.
I'm actually gonna go back to the chair report real quick. I just wanted to, Jim Coleman has resigned from the planning board, and so we're preparing, unless there's any objection, which I can't see why there would be, a proclamation in his honor, given the long, decades-long service to this town. So just wanted to thank Jim for all of his hard work over the many years and dedication to the community, and just let everybody know that. So we'll put together a proclamation, and we'll have that ready for the board soon.
I'm glad to see. I will try to get it for the next board meeting, but I'm on vacation next week. It may not be.
Okay, thank you. Chris. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Chris.
No, my only comment was gonna be to echo the what Jeff just said about Jim Coleman and his dedication and his contributions to the town over many years. That's all.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, just appreciation again for the quad board meeting last week, and a reiteration of the request to hold those meetings more frequently. I think as we meet more often, then the dynamic, we'll all become educated about how these meetings can work, how we can communicate more effectively, address these issues. I found we got great value from that. So I would certainly advocate for more of those, despite the fact that, of course, it means sacrifice of time from a lot of people. That's much appreciated. Secondly, much ado about everything. The Shakespeare in the Park at the weekend, I did get a chance to see it before I had to come away, and very impressive, and just a great addition to sort of widening the cultural availabilities that are in the town, and just appreciation for all of those who put that on, the Maynard Cultural Council, of course. So yeah, that was great, but great entertainment, and I look forward to more of the same or similar. So that's me for tonight.
Lindsay?
Thank you. I will echo everybody else's comments that I was grateful for the conversation we had last week at the quad board meeting. And I'm looking forward to more discussion like that in the future with those groups. And I'll add, and I should have probably added this after the bleacher vote, but I'm not really at the top of my game right now. I was reluctant to vote yes on the bleachers, just because I'm struggling with the idea of that project bumping ahead of a lot of the other important capital projects that we discussed last week, and also with the fact that I don't know that people are totally cognizant of what's coming in terms of debt exclusions and overrides in the coming year. So I will definitely be doing my best to ensure that everyone I know is pretty well apprised before going into fall town meeting of what else they might be asked to vote on that would affect their cost of living in the coming years. But I did vote yes this evening because I think that if that article is on the warrant, which it will be, I think it would be, I feel it would be undemocratic of me as a single person to stand in the way of the town having the opportunity to vote on that. That feels like a bit of a disruption of the process. So despite my reluctance, I we'll see that on the ballot. But I do encourage all of us to do everything that we can to be sure that anyone going to town meeting really understands what the implications are for their taxes and what other requests will be coming to them in the next 2 to 5 years. And that's all for me.
Very good. We're gonna cover this real quick soon, but one more thing. I've got Mass General Law open in front of me, and it does look like a ballot debt exclusion requires a 2/3 vote of the select board, which we would not have just met if I'm not mistaking this. So let's real quick make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's, because if I'm correct in this interpretation, we're not going to have that on the ballot based on the 3-2 vote we just took. So let's just take a quick pause because I want everybody clear on this before we leave this meeting.
Good.
Natasha, are you still on?
I guess sadly. Yeah, I am here.
Okay,
Where did you read that? I just want to, so I don't have to like, just show me.
I'm on Mass General Law, section 21C(J), and I'm also on the Prop 2.5 ballot question requirement procedure from maps.gov. From the Division of Local Services.
It was for debt exclusions and not specific. I'm not looking at it, but just
It's-
confirming. It's
Yeah, this
not
is
for
for
operational.
For the board or council vote to place for overrides, it's a majority, for underrides, it's a majority, for exclusions, it appears 2/3.
Because I know we've had debt exclusions in the past, like the Green Meadow School, and it's just been, the ballot has always been a majority, but the vote at town meeting,
Yes, but he.
I believe
Jeff is referring to the vote of the executive board,
Which,
so that the select board needs to vote
got
at-
it, to put it on the ballot.
at a greater majority than 2/3.
Green Meadow was 5-0, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was, all of the other.
No, I was thinking what you were meaning, the outcome of the vote versus the putting it on there.
But well. This is a good question. So I just want to clarify, Jeff, do you see where it says the select board? As I just did the same Google search for the Mass General Law. And they were referring to the local appropriating authority, who I believe to be town meeting, not the select board. So I'm asked, but maybe I'm asked.
I've got the board or the council. On this one, I've got, let me just double check here. Yeah, I'm being referenced from a document that says the board or the council as the local appropriating authority. It is clear in general law, it says the appropriating authority. I see the same spot that you're looking at.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I would usually I would seek town council, which I don't have this evening. So unless the board would like to re-vote, then, or else the vote stands at 3-2 and it may be nullified if you're right, like it may not be actionable according to Mass General Law, but I'm reluctant to sort of verify that just in my quick reading right now. So
Fair enough.
I'd rather
So-
X at town meeting or town council.
I don't think that would change the course of anyone's vote, I believe, so I don't think that that would be appropriate at this juncture. So I think what we would need to do is.
Can I ask a question just real quick on this topic since it's kind of emergent? So if, and I know there was a lot of emails about process and timeline. So if the town, let's just say the vote that the select board just took is means that it fails for the ballot. However, special town meeting, the article goes and it passes, wouldn't that still trigger the 90-day election as a result of that anyway? I'm trying to understand the sequence of events. Is the vote at town meeting automatically trigger the election?
No, I believe we would still have to put the question onto the ballot. I think that.
I think you're saying the same thing. So I'm like frantically rereading a lot of these emails. I'm afraid I'm about to make an error as I read these things. But so I asked a lot of those questions to town council and I forward that to everybody. So yeah, I'm reading what y'all have already been forwarded. So so if there's an appropriation, so again, if you go to town meeting and they appropriate the 3 million, whatever it is.
Right,
to
right, they appropriate it.
So if there is an appropriation contingent upon the debt exclusion, the debt exclusion must go on the ballot within 90 days of special town meeting. So. Yes, in my reading right now,
But that's only,
you'd have to do a 90 days.
that's the requirement of the, if we had voted
4-1.
4-1 to put it on, and I don't know if you're correct or not, but it's an interesting comment, but my understanding is that our vote has to come to put it on the ballot within 90 days of the date of the town meeting.
That's what I'm saying.
So, but it has nothing to do with triggering a town meeting. Town meeting doesn't trigger that vote. We trigger that vote.
No, I'm reading it. Similar, but I think maybe a little different from what you just said, David. I'm reading it as the appropriation at town meeting triggers the 90-day window when there needs to be a vote taken.
Greg, are you still on 21C?
I think
So in the definitions, the local appropriating authority is defined as the Board of Selectmen of the town.
Okay,
So that, to me, sounds pretty clear.
Yeah,
that it
yeah.
would be a 2/3, and therefore we did not just vote to place it on the ballot.
yeah, fair enough.
We're gonna double check that regardless with council tomorrow. And so please get on the horn with them
Yeah,
first thing. But if I'm reading this correctly, it did not pass to get onto the ballot.
So, Greg, in your follow-up to council, when are you going on vacation?
next week. I'm not going with town council's email. I mean, we can get this figured out.
Okay. Brian will be back tomorrow as well.
What's that?
What led you to look it up tonight?
Brian-
Just. Because we
Brian
just
will
took
be
a,
back.
just to make sure.
Yeah, no, I can, but I'll get this answered pretty quick. I'm just gonna email the same lawyer that emailed me the answer today, so.
Well, and we've also done debt exclusions. I mean, this is not the first, so I'm just curious if that,
First amendment's been so close, and I think we've been used to doing majority votes that.
Yeah.
Yep, so I apologize for not having that understanding before we took that vote, but here we are.
I appreciate it.
All right. Again, we'll double check, but if I'm interpreting correctly, it did not pass to be placed on the ballot. We'll, as soon as we get confirmation, make sure to send that. Greg will inform the select board and will inform you and Brian Natasha. Let me reopen that particular topic for comments. Anybody else want to make any comments or questions on what we just discussed?
I would, since we're talking about it, if that's okay.
Please, Natasha.
Just thinking about the sequence of, and I totally respect the work that the select board is needing to do with all the projects what were mentioned last week. I would worry about, because of where we are with the position of going to town vote and having that, how would we address that as a community when we have a town that may vote on, and I just would look to the select board to think about that as well, is if the town votes to proceed with this and their majority, how that may or may not factor into the select board's consideration to allowing it to proceed.
We'll have to figure out the right way to communicate that as a board as we approach town meeting in particular.
And
Couldn't be
then
on
just to,
on
just
a
to conf-
ballot. It could not be on the, unless Greg can get confirmation in the morning. It couldn't
that-
be on a ballot for election day, which is in November.
well, it could if there was a vote to reconsider, and I would ask that the select board maybe reconsider their vote and to do that. I don't know if, I mean, as we've had residents already say, I think that the nuclear option, considering that the select board, this was a project the select board 2 years ago supported proceeding. What would that, and I just find us to be we haven't talked about this option, and it kind of got brought up a little bit matter of factly at the quad board meeting, which was a little bit surprising that the select board was, considering not putting it on the ballot. So it's been less than a week that this has even been discussed as an option. So it is surprising, and I think the school committee would be very taken back because there hasn't been an opinion of the select board at this point for the majority to not proceed with the project. Everything has been with the informed select board view. Town funds have already been allocated for designs in this, and I understand priorities do arise, but at this juncture, it does feel like anti-democratic in the process. Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I do think there is value in bringing something to the town. If they vote it down, then that's, what it is. We learn and we repivot and we figure it out. But I feel like denying that opportunity, it feels hollow and unfortunate. So I just would hope that the select board, I don't know, Chris or Dave, I know, Chris, I haven't really heard your thoughts. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts to share.
My thoughts? Did you hear anyone else's thoughts when they voted?
I did. I did when the ones that voted yes.
You heard the word yes, and then you did hear something from Lindsay at the end as part of her selectman comments. But one of the reasons that I'm hesitant is because of a lot of the reasons that were discussed at the quad board meeting. Number one,
Yeah.
and number two, I'm concerned about some of the other things that we talked about at the quad board meeting. Like, is there an opportunity to do other things at the same time? And that I thought that might be vetted a little further or looked into a little bit further before this went before the voters.
Well,
And
that?
there's a lot of people and let's be clear about one thing. You brought up the select board a couple of years ago, right? And we were 100% in support of it, myself included. What was the price when we did that? About $1.5 million, 2 million maybe. Now we're
Yeah, the designs hadn't gone back, but yeah,
now,
exactly.
But wait a second. Now we're fast approaching $4 million. We're heading towards the $4 million mark, and that's concerning at this point to me. Given the Green Meadow School.
Chris, go ahead.
What's that?
I was saying one at a time, and Chris, please go ahead.
Yeah, just with the Green Meadow School, the potential for senior center leases and other things. There's a few other things out there that are on the table that I think inform my decision. And I think it's very, very, very disrespectful of anybody on this call or any other call to suggest that anyone, including especially David or I, are undemocratic because we cast a vote a certain way. So that's my comments.
All right, Natasha, please go ahead.
So part of thank you, Chris, for sharing that, because I know we hadn't had a chance to talk about it, and between the quad board meeting, some things that I clarified, the 750 seats brings the project down to 3.3. If there's an opportunity to, I would say, eliminate the press box, I would certainly, it's not off the table, but we need funding if we're looking for a design. Like, I don't know yet, because the window is closed, if the designs that we have now will allow for that piece, or if we would have to get new designs, and any of that would require more funding anyway to do. So I think the whole point would be that we would look to see how we can scale down as much as possible between now and town meeting to get more information from because it's only been a week since we vetted the drone option. I mean, anything is really on the table to do that. No one is looking to increase it. We're looking to do quite the opposite.
Thank you, Natasha. All right. Any other comments on 13B, which we've moved back to? All right, I think there has been some new information according to that, so I will see if anybody wants to re-entertain a motion. Doesn't sound like there's the appetite to do though, but I'll pause and see if anybody would like to. Okay, all right. In that case, I believe that concludes that topic for the night, and actually that includes all topics tonight. Are there any other comments or questions from the boards?
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn.
I think Mike said second, but he's.
Here we go. Yep, second.
Motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. David,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yeah.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.